Ukraine playing Scotland tonight, actually, aren't they, up in Scotland? Who do you want to win?
I always support the British team, I'm afraid, but I hope the Ukrainians play well as well. OK,
there we go. Talk to me, as I said, big guns are out today. What's the atmosphere like at the top at the moment?
Do you know what? It's fine, and of course there's all the Westminster froth, and I'm not decrying the importance of the issues at hand. But the reality is we've got a load of big issues we're grappling with. Less than 2 years to the next election, I think we can all say, given the time limits. We've got the cost of living package out, the £15 billion Rishi Sunak announced. There's all these issues you've just been reporting on in Ukraine, and I think the Prime Minister's leadership has been critical to that. I'm very focused. I've been talking this week about the efforts we're getting to ramp up work for prisoners to get them on the straight and narrow and to cut reoffending. And there's been all the distractions of Partygate. I think the accountability has been addressed. I think the transparency has been addressed. We're getting on with the job. I think that's what our constituents expect.
Should prisoners be allowed to celebrate the Jubilee?
I said this, I was in H&P Exeter, and I think that if prisoners, for example, I was icing cupcakes with Union Jack baubles and things on them.
Of course you were.
And of course I was. And that's a part of the Clinks restaurant in prisons, which I've quadrupled the number in prisons. And it gives offenders the skills to get jobs on release, and we know they're a third less likely to reoffend. So bottom line, it makes our streets safer. Actually, if offenders are willing to take a second chance to turn their lives around and start doing constructive things, and if taking part in the Jubilee celebrations gives them a bit of positive motivation in that regard, I don't think it's a bad thing.
OK, back to Partygate. The PM must be worried about his future, despite what you're saying, especially given what we've heard from Lord Geidt, who says he believes that the Prime Minister has potentially broken the ministerial code after being fined for a lockdown breach. Why do you think he hasn't?
Well, the Lord Geidt raised that issue and the PM has responded to it in a letter, and he's been clear that in relation to the single fixed penalty notice, he hadn't intentionally broken the law, and his attendance at that gathering, as has been well rehearsed, was inadvertent. So Lord Geidt is really important. He's a senior figure. We've actually been working for months to reinforce his role. That's been done by agreement between Number 10 and Lord Geidt. But actually, I think those questions have been answered both in general, but also now specifically in the letter the PM has sent. And as I said, we're getting on with the job, cost of living, economy.
But you have
Ukraine.
Just acknowledged that the Prime Minister broke the law, and that's against the ministerial code.
It's not quite that simple, because there have been examples in the past. I'm not sure raking over all the precedents is particularly helpful, but there are where, similarly, I remember Baroness Scotland, I think it was 2009.
Yeah, she wasn't Prime Minister, though.
No, but she was a minister, and these rules are meant to apply equally, and the point was she hadn't acted deliberately or intentionally, and therefore Gordon Brown took the view that the code hadn't been broken. So I'm just saying there are precedents for this, and I've explained the specific reasons why, in the absence of deliberately breaking the code or doing something deliberately, and I think it's clear from the circumstances of this particular gathering, where he turned up, was there for 10 minutes, was unaware that it was a surprise birthday cake for him, and all the stuff that's been well rehearsed. I don't think that was a deliberate a deliberate breach of the rules, and that's the key point.
But it is breaking the law, and that is against the ministerial code.
Well, it's not that simple, actually. And I think the PM...
Lord Geidt thinks it is.
No, he's asking... Actually, in fairness, what I think Lord Geidt raised was why in the House of Commons this hadn't been explicitly addressed. Now, of course, in the House of Commons, and I was there next to the PM, he's asked questions from all sides of the House. They'll focus on the bits they want to focus on, but it's a legitimate point to seek clarification on. The PM's provided it. And as I say, amidst all of this process, which has now been going on for a long time, and every question, I think, has been fairly answered by the PM, we're getting on with the job. And I do think that that's what our constituents, that's what the public expect. And there's a lot on the government's plate with the cost of living, with Ukraine, the law enforcement, the crime-fighting agenda. But we're not ducking those issues. The PM has not ducked those issues. He's addressed them squarely.
But there could be a vote of no confidence or a vote of confidence, depending on which way you look at it, as early as next week. That, according to William Hague, who says he thinks that Boris Johnson's in real trouble.
I like William Hague, I respect him, but he's a commentator in The Telegraph now, and of course a senior figure in his own right and previous leader of the Conservative Party. But I'm just not going to comment on the commentary. That's not my job as Deputy Prime Minister. It's not my job as a Member of Parliament. It's to serve my constituents, and that's what we're doing. on the cost of living, on crime fighting, and on the situation in Ukraine, which needs very careful management at a very sensitive time as well.
Do you think that we could find ourselves in a position where there is a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister as early as next week?
No.
Why?
I just don't see... allow me to just give you my view. I think the Westminster bubble and village whips this stuff up. I'm not saying it's not serious and significant, but we've dealt with all of those issues. The Prime Minister's dealt with all those issues. It does feel like a lot of commentary building up this issue when actually, when I talk to MPs, when I talked across the House of Commons about the issues that I'm taking forward, a new victims bill, parole reform, Bill of Rights, the crime-fighting agenda, particularly rehabilitation in prisons, they want to see us driving forward that agenda. And to be honest with you, votes of no confidence, leadership contests, all of that is yet more Westminster talking to itself, not talking to the public, not talking to our constituents. And I think the vast majority of MPs respect, recognise and agree with that. The two people in the House of Commons who want a leadership contest, who talk about it every time in the House of Commons, are Keir Starmer and Ian Blackford for the SNP.
And at least 40 of your MPs.
But in fact, they're not asking for it because they think it's in the public interest or indeed in the Conservative interest. They think there's some political gain for them in doing so. And again, that's a point which I think senior members of the parliamentary party are also making.
And at least 40 of your MPs?
At least 40 of my MPs...
want a leadership challenge?
Look, I don't know what the numbers are. I don't think anyone does. I doubt it's that high.
Really?
In terms of letters. But the truth is, I don't know. But the reality is there's, over 350 Conservative MPs. And I think that the overwhelming swathe of the party recognise what I'm saying, which is our constituents, the public, want us to get on with the job. All of the people who want to see us in a leadership contest, most, are on the other side of the benches in the House of Commons, Labour and the SNP. Yeah,
but it looks as though it's what certainly by the end of the month is what many of your colleagues are saying.
How could anyone possibly know that?
Perhaps as early as next week. How can you possibly know that it won't be?
I don't know that.
So why did you say no?
I can't prove a negative to you, Kay, and you're always the most guileful of interviewers. I mean that in a positive way.
OK, I'll take it in a positive way then.
But the reality is, all I'm telling you, because I talk to MPs every day, because I talk to the whole range of MPs on all sides of the party, and I know what they're saying to me.
Might be saying something different to somebody else, though.
Could be. But, of course, the media will magnify the negative voices.
Oh, it's always the media's fault.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I was being fair and judicious, Kay. I was just saying I think sometimes the silent majority do get neglected a little bit by the media. OK.
COVID-style news conferences on the economy. When are they going to start?
I don't know. That will be for the comms team and Number 10 to decide, but I do think that...
So they are going to happen?
Look, I don't know. That's the comms for the Director of Communications and the team there. But actually making sure we are delivering for people with the cost of living is really important. We've got the increase, the cut in national insurance coming in July.
You're going to tell me about the 15 billion again?
No, I was going to tell you about the tax cut for national insurance coming in July, and then the £400 cash grant for paying energy bills in October, and the fact that we just need to be making sure not just that we're delivering, but also demonstrating what we're doing for people struggling to make ends meet.
As a result of your first answer, it made me think, are you suggesting that potentially we could have an early election?
No.
Definitely not?
I think it's very unlikely.
OK.
And I think, by the way, when the election comes, we'll win it.
Of course you do. You wouldn't say otherwise, would you? Travel chaos. What on earth is happening?
Well, do you know what? The first thing to say is it's good news that more holidaymakers got the confidence post-COVID pandemic to say, OK, do you know what? We're going to book these flights. There's obviously been a surge in demand. Throughout the pandemic, the government provided, I think it's £8 billion of support. There's been some tweaks to the regulation to make it easier for the airline industry to hire. And I think also there's clearly been a lack of preparation for that surge back of demand of holidaymakers. And Grant Shapps has been talking, the Transport Secretary, has been talking to the industry for months now, saying that this will come and that you need to make sure you've got your recruitment in place. So I know that there's a bit of finger-pointing going on at the moment, but that's the support and that's the advice.
I mean, whose fault is it that kids are sleeping on the floor at Stansted Airport?
I don't think the airline operators have done the recruitment that they should have done and taken the advice that the Transport Secretary gave them.
OK. There's some suggestions that aviation bosses want to access tax records that would help them to recruit staff more quickly rather than going back through all of the previous employers. Is that something the government will look at?
So I don't know the details of that, but I do know that we've made some changes on the regulatory front because we know that there's a demand for recruitment and we want to help the airline industry deal with that. Look, I think it's good news holidaymakers have got the confidence to be taking these trips and holidays, and we do not want to see the scenes or the reports, as you mentioned, of people having to sleep in airports, and we want to work with the industry to facilitate that. But again, in terms of some of the finger pointing, the transport sector has been talking to the sector for some time now, saying you need to get on with the recruitment to make sure that you've got the capacity, because this demand is coming back.
Yeah, I mean, we're being told that it's likely to get, I'm just looking at the pictures there, it's likely to get worse before it gets better. What can the government do today to help people who...
Well, actually, but why do we always seem to do that? It's actually for the sector to address what is a better problem to have than falling demand, which is increasing demand. But we are providing the support. We've already provided the support. And of course, I'm sure if there are smart things that we can do together with the sector to ease the way and make it easier for holidaymakers, of course we will want to do that.
When are we sending the asylum seekers to Rwanda?
I don't know exactly. There's been talk of next month, where the Home Secretary is working on the operational matters to get that first flight going. I think it will be important. I think people will see then that you don't have the automatic right to come via an unlawful route to the UK without the risk of finding yourself in a different destination, i.e. Rwanda. And I'm not saying it's the whole piece around this. I've never said that. I do think it's an important piece of the jigsaw of dealing with this cruel trade in human misery by those who want to exploit unlawful routes into this country, which we can't be allowing.
And are you completely comfortable that they are Syrians who are going to be sent to Rwanda?
I don't know the nationality.
But are you completely comfortable if they are, which we believe they are?
Well, again, I'm not going to comment on something that I don't have the facts on, but I'm very confident that we will do this in the right way. We'll have the right processes, human rights compliant, and that Rwanda will be able to deal with these in a decent, humane way. OK. What are you going to do for the Jubilee? I've got lots of Jubilee parties. It's quite fun, I think, the community's coming together.
Absolutely.
My street is having a street party, and for me in particular, my boys are 6 and 9. It's quite interesting. 7 and 9, sorry. Goes so quickly.
It does.
It's just quite nice seeing the patriotism and their involvement. My mum was sending me some pictures of 1977 and me, and I'm not going to show you these pictures of me waving.
Oh, dear, have you got them on your phone?
Maybe later.
Which channel will you be watching?
Sky, of course.
OK, that's what we needed to hear. Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you.